foreign policy is supposed to be drafted between the president and Congress. But these days, legislation is outsourced. Now NGOs and think tanks provide policy prescriptions to elected officials who in turn consult with these groups to make any and all policy decisions. One of the most influential of these groups is called the Council on Foreign Relations, or the CFR. According to its mission statement, the CFR sponsors independent task forces that produce reports with both findings and policy prescriptions on the most important foreign policy topics. Well, that sounds harmless enough. But what sort of policy prescriptions can we expect from an organization whose board members have included some of the most influential politicians, establishment journalists, and corporate CEOs from almost every industry? And moreover, how much influence does this organization really have on actual policy implementation? Well, just to give you an idea, this is what Hillary Clinton said at the council on her very first visit as Secretary of State.
We get a lot of advice from the council, so this will mean I won't have this far to go to be told what we should be doing and how we should think about the future.
Wow, what you should be doing, huh? Sounds like the CFR has a lot of pull. Well, earlier I spoke to one of the primary researchers on the group, Lawrence Shoup. His book Imperial Brain Trust lays out multiple case studies about the role of the policy group behind the scenes and outlines how the group has shaped some of the most important foreign policy decisions over the last century. I first asked him why the CFR is so different than any other think tank in D.C.
First of all, it's not just a think tank. It's also a membership organization. So it's unique in that sense. So if you look at Brookings or the Heritage Institute or the American Enterprise, the Heritage Foundation or the American Enterprise Institute or any number of other think tanks you might mention, they're think tanks. The Council on Foreign Relations is a think tank, which is one of the biggest and oldest and most influential, or I should say the most influential, but it's also a membership organization that has almost 5,000 members, and that membership is, the who's who of the power structure. Since 1976, I looked at the top 80 to 100, I think it's 85 or something, policymakers in the United States, President, Vice President, Secretary of State, Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary of Defense, the National Security Advisor, and so on. 75% of those were members of the Council on Foreign Relations. 75% of all the top policymakers since 1976 have been members of this one organization. No other, whether it's Brookings Institute or any of the others you might name, have anywhere close to that coverage of top leadership and their members. You could talk about other things. They also have, besides their members, individual members, they also have corporate members. And if you look at the list of their corporate members, you find all the top, multinational, transnational corporations in there. Whether it's ExxonMobil, whether it's Chase Manhattan, JP Morgan Chase, whether it's McKinsey, whether it's Shell Oil or Barclays or Deutsche Bank or whatever, they're members of the Council on Foreign Relations corporate membership.
And what are these massive corporations getting out of it if they're actually financially backing the council?
Oh, well, they're getting advice from the council think tank people. They have fellows. They have something like 100 fellows at the council. There's a pretty big endowment, so its yearly budget is somewhere around $60-70 million. So with that, they buy some top talent, thinkers, philosophers, politicians, so on, and those people advise. So if JP Morgan Chase wants to know about whether they should get into some country, maybe they're already in, maybe, most countries in the world, but maybe they want to add one, some obscure country that I don't do much about, they can go and talk to the council's senior fellows that are experts in that particular country and ask whether that looks like a good investment.
You've also said that at least 14 CIA directors have been among its members. How influential do you think the CIA has been on CFR policy recommendations?
I think that it's part of an overall picture. The CIA doesn't dominate the council. The council brings together, and the other thing I should mention about the council, it's a capitalist class organization. If you look at the leadership, the board of directors, which is the top people that make the decisions at the council, a good percentage of them are capitalist class. That is, $10 million or more worth of wealth. And if you start naming the names, you see they're even more than, that's more than most of them are more than 10 million. David Rockefeller was the chairman for many years, of course, a billionaire, one of the wealthiest families in the history of humanity. Then Peter Peterson took over as the chair, and he was Blackstone. He was with Lehman Brothers and did other things. He was Nixon's Secretary of Commerce. And he went into Blackstone and founded it with Stephen Schwarzman, and then became a billionaire. Then the current leadership is Robert